Now, when it comes to Cardi B, the meltdown you are about to witness is not a meltdown at all. This is a full-scale detonation. This is a woman standing on the internet, in front of millions, threatening a man who says her baby daddy drugged him, groped him, and then sent a hit squad to erase him from the planet. And she did it with a smile. She did it with that little laugh. She did it like she thought the whole world was still on her side. Cardi B has stepped into the middle of one of the darkest allegations any active NFL player has faced this decade, and instead of asking questions, instead of taking a breath, instead of doing the one thing a mother of Stefon Diggs' unborn child probably should have done, she picked up a match, poured gasoline on the entire situation, and lit it. What happened next has already changed the way people look at her, the way people look at Stefon Diggs, and the way people are about to look at everything the two of them touch for the rest of this year. Before we go any further, if you want the full breakdown, and you want to see exactly how deep this rabbit hole actually runs, tap that like button, subscribe, and hype up the video, because I am telling you right now, by the time we get to the Jay-Z portion, the Kanye portion, and the Colin Kaepernick betrayal that just resurfaced on top of all of this, you are going to understand why this weekend might be remembered as one of the most explosive weekends in modern hip-hop history. The man at the center of this storm is named Chris Blake Griffin. If you have not heard the name before, remember it, because Chris Blake Griffin is the domino that is about to knock down a very expensive row of dominoes, and Cardi B just personally handed him the shove. Chris used to be a stylist. Not just any stylist. He was the stylist for Stefon Diggs. This was a working relationship. This was a business relationship. This was a trust relationship. And according to Chris Blake Griffin, that trust got shattered inside a hotel room in Washington, D.C., on a flight that Stefon Diggs paid for, on a trip that Stefon Diggs organized, in a car that Stefon Diggs was sitting in when the alleged nightmare began. Chris says Stefon Diggs offered him a piece of candy. Chris says he thought it was just a joke. Chris says he ate it. And Chris says whatever was in that candy was not chocolate. His words, not mine. He compared the aftermath to something in the realm of ecstasy. He said his body felt violated before his mind could catch up. And then, according to him, the same night, Stefon Diggs pulled himself out inside the vehicle, tried to force himself on him, walked him toward a hotel room door with an arm draped around his neck, and whispered things into his ear that no grown man wants another grown man whispering. Chris says he laughed it off in the moment because his brain could not process what was happening. Chris says he tried to leave. And Chris says shortly after he rejected those advances, an attempt was made on his life at Central Apartments on 755 South Spring Street. That is not a rumor. There is video. There is an incident report from 2023. There is footage from 2024 of him getting beaten in the street. And there is a court settlement between Chris Blake Griffin and Stefon Diggs' own brother, Darez Martian Diggs, who Chris says was one of the men in that alleged assault. So let that soak in for 1 second. Before Cardi B ever opened her mouth. Before Cardi B ever even entered Stefon Diggs' public timeline. There was a paper trail. There was body cam adjacent footage. There was a lawsuit. There was a settlement. There was a police report. There were pages, and pages, and pages of receipts. This is not a TMZ rumor. This is a documented, court-recognized, blood-on-the-pavement allegation with a real victim who has been telling the same story for 2 straight years without changing a comma. And Stefon Diggs? Stefon Diggs is not out here suing for the incident. Stefon Diggs is suing Chris Blake Griffin for defamation. Stefon Diggs wants Chris to hand over all the travel records for the DC trip. And this is the part that everybody is missing. Chris looked at that request and basically said, "You are the one who flew me out. You have every receipt. You booked the flight. You paid for the room. Why are you asking me for records that were never in my possession to begin with?" That is not the move of a man with a clean case. That is the move of a man who is panicking. That is the move of a legal team that is dragging its feet, praying the news cycle moves on before the discovery phase opens up a door that cannot be closed again. And instead of letting the lawyers cook, instead of staying quiet, instead of doing the one professional thing a public figure in this position could possibly do, Stefon Diggs' girlfriend, the mother of his upcoming child, walked onto a live stream and threatened the alleged victim on camera. Cardi B looked into the lens, and she called Chris Blake Griffin a light-skinned lizard. She called him an albino. She said, And I am paraphrasing so we can keep this clean, that if he wanted to keep coming for Stefon Diggs, she had something waiting for him. She accused Chris of being a thief. She accused Chris of juicing his own story up because it was not gaining traction fast enough. She accused Chris of being obsessed with being involved with another man. She said, "You have a son. Why would you want to be involved in these types of allegations?" As if being drugged, groped, and beaten by 3 men is now a lifestyle choice a survivor picks off a menu. Cardi B, in one single rant, managed to victim blame, gay bash, threaten a witness in an active civil case, and defend a man she was not even dating when the alleged crime happened. Read that back. She was not there. She was not in the car. She was not in the hotel. She was not in the apartment on Spring Street. She was not in Stefon Diggs' life yet. And she just told the entire internet that she knows for a fact Stefon Diggs does not act like that, when the truth is she cannot know that, because none of us know what any of us do when the camera's cut off. Now, here is what makes this whole thing feel dirtier than it already is. Cardi B is not stupid. Cardi B knows exactly what a defamation case looks like. Cardi B has been on the receiving end of one. Cardi B has paid out on one. Cardi B understands, better than most rappers alive right now, that you do not go on social media and threaten a plaintiff in an ongoing civil suit against your partner. So why did she do it? The answer, when you strip away the noise, is embarrassment. Cardi B is embarrassed. Stefon Diggs was supposed to be the reset. Stefon Diggs was supposed to be the upgrade after Offset. Stefon Diggs was supposed to be the stability. And now Stefon Diggs is trending, not for touchdowns, not for a Pro Bowl, not for a highlight reel, but for an alleged sexual assault of another man, followed by an alleged hit ordered on that man's life. That is not the storyline you sign up for when you tell the world you are having a baby with an NFL star. That is a nightmare. And instead of processing that nightmare privately, Cardi B tried to bulldoze it publicly, and all she did was pour lighter fluid on a fire that was already licking the ceiling. And here is the part Cardi B does not want anybody to think about too hard. Cardi B is not defending Stefon Diggs the athlete. Cardi B is defending Stefon Diggs the investment. Cardi B has a baby coming with this man. Cardi B has a brand attached to this man. Cardi B has an album cycle overlapping with this man. Every day Stefon Diggs trends for the wrong reason, Cardi B's rollout takes a punch to the ribs. So when Cardi B calls Chris Blake Griffin a hater, when Cardi B calls Chris Blake Griffin a thief, when Cardi B says Chris Blake Griffin is obsessed with being involved with another man, what Cardi B is really saying is, please stop costing me money. And that is not a defense. That is a business complaint dressed up as loyalty. Cardi B does not sound like a partner. Cardi B sounds like a stockholder watching her share price bleed in real time. And the internet, which forgives Cardi B for almost everything, is starting to notice the difference. Chris Blake Griffin did not stay quiet either. Chris responded with a post so long, so detailed, so specific, that Cardi B's team went silent within hours. Chris walked through every piece of the timeline. Chris reposted the incident report. Chris reposted the beatdown footage. Chris reposted the settlement paperwork with the brother. And Chris made one thing very, very clear. He is not going anywhere. He is not backing down. He is not being scared off by a rap star's girlfriend on Instagram Live. And every time Cardi B opens her mouth, she is not helping Stefon Diggs. She is helping Chris Blake Griffin build a public record of harassment and intimidation that his attorneys are absolutely screenshotting in real time. That is not me talking. That is basic litigation. When the partner of the defendant starts publicly attacking the plaintiff's team stops filing motions and starts filing new counts. And Cardi B just wrote them a Christmas card in July. And let us not skip over the language Cardi B used. Because language matters in a courtroom. Cardi B did not say, I disagree with these allegations. Cardi B did not say, I stand by my partner. Cardi B did not say, let the legal process play out. Cardi B went out of her way to insult Chris Blake Griffin's skin tone. Cardi B went out of her way to insult Chris Blake Griffin's sexuality. Cardi B went out of her way to frame Chris Blake Griffin as some kind of predator who is chasing men into unwanted allegations, when the actual evidence, the actual video, the actual court documents, all point in the opposite direction. Chris Blake Griffin is the one with an incident report. Chris Blake Griffin is the one with a settlement from Stefon Diggs' own brother. Chris Blake Griffin is the one who has a video of himself being beaten in a stairwell. And Cardi B looked at all of that and said, essentially, he is just mad we did not forgive him for stealing. That is the play. That is the entire play. Turn the victim into the criminal. Turn the plaintiff into the pest. Turn the paperwork into a punchline. And it might have worked, if this was 2016. It might have worked, if the receipts were not this loud. It might have worked, if Cardi B was not on record threatening the man on camera. But it is 2026. And in 2026, the receipts always come back. Now, if you think that is the biggest hip-hop story of the weekend, take a breath, because it is not. Not by a long shot. Because while Cardi B was setting Stefon Diggs' case on fire, Jay-Z was 3 subway stops away turning Yankee Stadium into the most stacked reunion tour hip-hop has ever seen, and the internet is not talking about the show. The internet is talking about what the show accidentally revealed. Jay-Z ran 3 straight nights at Yankee Stadium. 3 straight nights. And on paper, that should be the flex of the decade. On paper, that should be the moment everybody bows down and admits HOV is the only living rapper who can still do that kind of number in his hometown. But under the surface, the receipts are telling a different story, and the receipts do not lie. Because on night 1, Jay-Z did not walk out alone. He walked out with Beyoncé. On night 2, he did not stand on his own catalog. He brought out Slick Rick, Pharrell, and Eminem. And on night 3, the biggest night, the one everybody was waiting for, he did not carry that stadium by himself either. He needed Rihanna. He needed Beyoncé again. He needed Blue Ivy on the piano. He needed Nas. He needed Memphis Bleek. He needed Jay-Z-O. He needed Alicia Keys. He needed Jadakiss, Fat Joe, Swizz Beatz, Teyana Taylor, Jermaine Dupri, The Dream, Jeezy, Usher, and Pharrell again. That is not a concert. That is a family emergency phone tree. That is a legend calling every friend he ever had and asking them to please, please, please show up because the stadium is already sold. And I want to be very careful here, because Jay-Z is Jay-Z. Jay-Z is one of the greatest rappers who has ever touched a microphone. Jay-Z is a business genius. Jay-Z sold Rocawear. Jay-Z sold Rockefeller. Jay-Z co-owns a streaming service. Jay-Z has a billion-dollar wife. Jay-Z has a daughter who plays piano at Yankee Stadium at 12 years old. Nobody is minimizing Jay-Z the empire. But Jay-Z the performer, in 2026, needed an entire village to fill 3 nights. And you know who did not need a village? Kanye West. Say what you want about Kanye. Cancel him for the 11th time if that makes you feel better. But the man just sold out SoFi Stadium for 2 straight nights, and SoFi holds 80,000 seats. That is almost double Yankee Stadium. Kanye did it without a single co-headliner. Kanye did it without dragging Beyoncé out of retirement. Kanye did it without begging Rihanna to fly in off her boyfriend's tour. Kanye did it because Kanye still has the one thing money cannot buy, which is a rabid, worldwide, will follow you anywhere fanbase. Albania literally built Kanye a stadium. Read that sentence again. A whole country built the man a venue, and 60,000 people showed up just to look at him. And the industry refuses to acknowledge it. The industry pretends Kanye is finished. The industry pretends the numbers are not what they are. But Jay-Z knows. Jay-Z has to know. Because on night 3, Jay-Z performed Watch the Throne Records. Jay-Z performed songs Kanye produced. Jay-Z performed So Appalled, and Jay-Z muted Kanye's verse. He muted the verse. On the record he needed to fill his own stadium. That is not disrespect. That is fear dressed up as principle. And Kanye saw the footage. Kanye posted fire emojis. Kanye, the same man who has said unforgivable things about Jay-Z's children, the same man who has burned every bridge in the industry, the same man who is supposed to be cancelled forever, cracked the door open with a couple of little flames on a screen. And I will tell you right now, Jay-Z would benefit from that reunion more than Kanye would. Because Jay-Z has Paris coming. Jay-Z has more shows on the calendar. And a Kanye guest appearance in Paris would break the internet in half. But Jay-Z is not going to ask. Jay-Z is never going to lower himself to ask. Kanye is going to have to grovel. And even if Kanye does grovel, he needs to understand that Jay-Z is not looking for a friend. Jay-Z is looking for a ticket mover. This is business. This has always been business. And that is what the Kaepernick freestyle was really about. Yes. We have to talk about it. Because in the middle of a 3-night victory lap, in the middle of a Beyoncé cameo, in the middle of a Rihanna return, Jay-Z decided to freestyle about Colin Kaepernick. And that is the moment the concert broke. That is the moment a portion of the audience remembered why they have been side-eyeing HOV since 2019. Jay-Z stood up there and rapped, essentially, that Colin Kaepernick signed a non-disclosure agreement, took the check, and has no business complaining. Jay-Z said it with his chest. Jay-Z said it in front of tens of thousands. And within 24 hours, TMZ reported that Colin Kaepernick never signed a non-disclosure agreement. Not one. Zero. That is not a small mistake. That is not a bar you get to walk back. That is a Hall of Fame rapper accusing a black protest icon of taking hush money on a stage the NFL helped build. And it gets worse. Because the same TMZ founder came out and said, on camera, that Roc Nation was actively seeding negative stories about Colin Kaepernick to media outlets in the exact same window that Jay-Z was publicly claiming to support him. A hit piece was pitched to TMZ. A hit piece against Colin Kaepernick. And TMZ, of all outlets, said no because they, and I quote the spirit of it, did not have the cultural cachet to punch that far below the belt. Now think about that. TMZ, the outlet that made a business model out of celebrity destruction, looked at what Roc Nation was pitching and said, this is too dirty even for us. That is the story. That is the real story. Not the Beyoncé cameo. Not the Rihanna return. Not the Blue Ivy piano solo. The real Yankee Stadium story is that Jay-Z, in his moment of triumph, chose to twist the knife one more time into a man who lost his career for kneeling during the national anthem. And this is the same Jay-Z who was seen in a Colin Kaepernick jersey. The same Jay-Z who was seen shoulder to shoulder with the movement. The same Jay-Z who told the world he was in it for the long haul. And then the NFL called. And then Jay-Z said, quote, we are past kneeling. And that quote never went away. That quote follows him into every green room, every red carpet, every stadium he ever fills. And on night 3, on the biggest stage of his year, Jay-Z decided to relitigate it in a freestyle. That is not confidence. That is a guilty conscience with a beat under it. And there is one more layer nobody is putting on the table, so let me put it there. The reason Kanye is winning without help is the exact same reason Jay-Z had to book help. Kanye has spent the last 4 years being the villain in every single news cycle. Kanye has been dragged, boycotted, deplatformed, delisted, and defriended. And in that same 4 years, Kanye's core audience has calcified into steel. When you survive that many cancellation attempts, the fans who stay are the fans who will never leave. That is unshakable equity. Jay-Z, on the other hand, has spent the last 4 years being the safe, sanitized, corporate face of hip-hop. Jay-Z has been the guy with the NFL deal, the guy with the Roc Nation brunch, the guy who shows up at the White House, the guy who pours the champagne. And that is a beautiful career on paper, but it does not build the kind of foaming, feral, we ride with you forever fanbase that fills a stadium with no assistance. So when Jay-Z had to fill 3 nights at Yankee Stadium, Jay-Z had to make phone calls. And when Kanye had to fill 2 nights at SoFi, Kanye just had to open the doors. That is the difference between being respected and being needed. And Jay-Z, deep down, knows it. And this is where the whole weekend collapses into one clean thesis. Cardi B threatening Stefon Diggs' alleged victim, Jay-Z rewriting the Kaepernick timeline in real time, and Kanye West quietly running up 80,000-seat rooms with no help. Those 3 stories are not 3 stories. That is one story. That is the story of what happens when public image runs out of gas. That is the story of what happens when you spend years telling the world one thing and the receipts finally catch up. Cardi B cannot bully Chris Blake Griffin into silence. Jay-Z cannot freestyle his way out of a documented smear campaign. And the industry cannot pretend Kanye is invisible when a foreign country is out here building him arenas. All three of them are living inside a mirror that is starting to crack. And the sound you are hearing, if you listen closely, is the glass. Now, here is where I need your voice, because this weekend is going to get louder before it gets quieter. Chris Blake Griffin is not done. Stefon Diggs' defamation case is going to hit Discovery, and if those DC travel records come out the way Chris is hinting they will, this becomes the biggest active NFL scandal of the season, and Cardi B is going to be sitting on the witness list whether she likes it or not. Jay-Z has more shows in Paris, and if Kanye pulls up, the internet stops for a week. And Kanye, love him or hate him, is one album away from making every industry executive who buried him this year eat a plate of their own words. So I want you to tell me, in the comments, who you think comes out of this weekend the cleanest. Is it Cardi B, who is fighting a fight nobody asked her to fight? Is it Jay-Z, who is filling stadiums but leaking credibility every time he opens his mouth about Kaepernick? Is it Kanye, who is winning without being invited to a single party? Or is it Chris Blake Griffin, the stylist nobody knew, the plaintiff nobody expected, and possibly the man who ends up rewriting how the NFL handles allegations against its stars? Drop your answer below. Do not be shy. Because whichever name you pick, I promise you, the next 24 hours are going to test it. One last thing, because I promised you this would be a full breakdown and I do not skip on my promises. Watch what happens next with Chris Blake Griffin. Watch it carefully. Because the way Chris Blake Griffin has been treated online this week, the mocking, the misgendering, the accusation that he is somehow inventing an entire 2-year paper trail for clout, that is the exact same playbook the industry ran on Colin Kaepernick. Different arena, same script. Isolate the accuser. Question the accuser's motives. Flood the internet with laughter and slurs until the accuser starts to look ridiculous. And then, once the accuser is ridiculous, the powerful person on the other side gets to walk. Chris Blake Griffin is not letting that happen. Chris Blake Griffin has receipts. Chris Blake Griffin has footage. Chris Blake Griffin has a settled civil case with Stefon Diggs' own brother sitting inside the record. And Cardi B, whether she meant to or not, just turned Chris Blake Griffin into the most sympathetic figure in the entire hip-hop news cycle. That is not a small thing. That is a shift in the wind. And once the wind shifts, it does not shift back. And if you made it this far, you already know the drill. Leave a like. Subscribe. Hype up the video. Because I am telling you right now, the second Chris Blake Griffin files his response to Cardi B's threats, the second Jay-Z's Paris dates get announced, the second Kanye posts one more fire emoji at Yankee Stadium footage, we are back on this channel picking up exactly where we left off. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for being here. This is the kind of weekend that separates the fans from the archivists, and if you are still watching at this point, you are the archivist. So stay with me. Stay locked. And I will see you in the next one.